Good morning and welcome everyone. This is a webinar discussing start of school and PowerSchool to make sure you have all your settings ready to go to the start of the year. I will start out with my normal disclaimer to say that we are in a sandbox server and this should be used for training purposes only, that no real students or data are going to be shared in this video demonstration, as we do use that sandbox server that is full of fake students and fake data. So any likeness to any real student or person is purely coincidental. All right, so it is the start of year and we have all rolled over, and literally last night in my pilot environment, I did my end of year process. So it is like I am starting brand new in the 24-25 school year, just like you did back in June, and have had time to kind of work on your settings. So what I want to do today is kind of go through my list, and I have my little checklist here, see, of all the things that we want to make sure are set up and correct so that you don't see any anomalies or have any hiccups when you start school. So everybody should now be in the 24-25 school year. And when I, scroll down here, I see that I have 24-25. So some of the things that we want to start checking, you do want to verify that you have your years and terms correct in all of your schools. And you want to make sure you have all the settings for your years and terms. So I am going to come and start at district management and go into district management scheduling and look at my years and terms. So I see that I do have the 24-25 school year here. And when I go to edit terms, I noticed that I have a year-long term. A lot of times when we are starting our new school year and getting ready for end of year, or even way back before that, when we start getting ready for Power Scheduler, we'll set up our years and terms and really just put the whole school year out there, because a lot of times you have to flip on the new year before you even get a district calendar to know when the first and end date of school is. And so you might prep a year and term over in Power Scheduler and have to set it up here. So you want to verify that your first and end date are correct. Now remember, in my pilot server, do not pay attention to my end date being in July. We have to run our server all year long through the summer for our training purposes, but you have to make sure that your end of year is before the end of year process. I do know that most districts we know finish at the end of May, so you might have like a May 20th date or something like that on there. A lot of our STCs who run year round have to have an end date prior to end of year. We know that that's always going to be the Tuesday to Tuesday before that third Friday in June. And so we'll have end of year dates running, let's say like June 10th or something like that for some of our STCs out across the state. So those are the dates that you should be seeing somewhere in that area for your end date. So ignore the fact that mine goes into July. You cannot go into July. So you want to make sure that that's in there. One of the things that you want to make sure that you have inside, and I do not have it set up here, is your import file term. So everybody is very aware of our term IDs that we use in PowerSchool. For the 24-25 school year, 3400 is that term ID. You will see it down here. When you create your years and terms, one of the things that you need to do as soon as it's created is to actually go back into the term and make sure that this number down here, the term ID for the term you've created, is actually placed into that import file term number. If you don't do that, then some really weird things can happen when you try to import files in that have associated term IDs that it can't find within the system. So I'm going to submit that page right here. Now, this is my district office view. I want to flip over to my high school view and show you what the years and terms looks there. And I want you to notice something. So I'm going to same thing, go here, school management this time, scheduling, years and terms. I've got 24-25, go to the edit terms. But notice my terms here. Notice I have way more than just that year-long term here at the high school. I have the 24-25. I also have broken it to semesters and to quarters. So what's the purpose of this years and terms? So let's have a little refresher, and this might help some of you who are new if you're new into your position here at the state. When it comes to years and terms setup, you want to be able to set this up for your shortest length of class that you offer in your particular school. So years and terms are set up individually at each school. There is a way to set up years and terms at the district office and push it down to each school. That's that batch school setup some of you may be familiar with. So at my high school, when I create a year-long term, That is telling this program that I'm going to offer classes that last all year long. Students are going to start the class in August, they're going to end the class in May. If I break it into semesters, that means I'm telling this program I'm going to have classes that I'm going to schedule that are semester length in term. I'm going to have classes that start in August, end in December. I'm going to have some classes that start in January, end in May. And if I were to go all the way down to the quarter level, then I'm telling PowerSchool that I'm going to have classes that are just 9 weeks. We have some people who do trimesters. I see some people who've done 6-week intervals. That's what this term setup is telling you the length of classes you're going to offer for your school. Now, another thing that this term setup can do, because in elementary schools, a lot of times you'll see those schools just put the year-long term because they're like, hey, all I do is schedule, kindergarten reading all year long, kindergarten math all year long. Perfectly legit. Then I'll get the questions from districts. Hey, Stacy, I'm trying to code on my report card attendance, and it won't calculate anything for quarter 2 attendance or quarter 1 attendance. Well, that's something else this right here controls. This term setup controls if it'll calculate date ranges for attendance calculations on things like object reports and report cards. So I have seen where some elementary schools, even though they don't offer classes down to the quarter level, will build their years and terms down to the quarter level just so they can use it for reporting segments of different things. Now, that being said, if you build all the way down to these type of terms at any of your schools, then your district office needs to have that same build down in their years and terms. So when I'm at district office, and again, go back into scheduling in years and terms, because I built my high school out the largest all the way down to the quarter level, I need to have my district office built down to the quarter level. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, Stacy, why do I need to do that? Because it's not like I'm scheduling classes at the district office, and it's not like I'm reporting attendance dates out of district office, because there is no attendance at district office. It's all contained at the schools. Well, here's why. Certification. How many of you have had to work with your HR department because you get a teacher who's trying to get team certified, trying to do a certificate renewal, trying to do like an alternate certification or an emergency certification, and you get that email from the state saying, I need you to print me a schedule of your teacher from the district office view. When you get that email, if you don't have your years and terms built out at the district office view to match the longest build out at your schools, then when you print their schedule, you might not pick up all of their classes to be able to send to us here at the State Department. And the reason we have to have it from the district office view instead of just a school view is because we have to see the whole breadth of any school they might be teaching at in one fell swoop. And we're going to get that best view at district office. So as you can see here, I'm only partially set up at the district office. So I need to go in and I need to create my years and terms for those semesters. So I'm going to quickly come in. So name of term, semester 1, S1. I know it's going to start on 8/1/2024 to 12/20/2024. It represents half. And even though my import term ID is 0, I know that if I'm at the 3400 term ID for the year, that I'm going to be at 3401. So I can go ahead and preset this here when I submit, or I can leave it blank. And once I get it submitted, I go back in and see that it says 3401, and I would type that in there. So if you're playing this game along with me as we're going in real time and you have a second screen, go into your years and terms and make sure you have your term IDs set up right here. Make sure that your district office is built out as far as you need to for your others. So I would again hit new. And I promise I won't make y'all sit through all of these. I'm just going to go through a couple so that you can see it. Semester 2. So when is my semester 2? I've got it slated 1/1/2025. I'm going to make people come back to work on, or kids come back to school on New Year's Day, because you know that's how we roll around here. 7/31/2025. 2025, again, you would have it in May or June to be your end. And then if I know that semester one's 3401, it goes in chronological order, so it'll be 3402 and hit submit. And then I need to continue and I need to do quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. So that is the first thing that you need to verify within your schools is that you have your years and terms built up as long as you need to, and that your district office matches it, and that you have term IDs in every one of those boxes at all of the schools. And remember, if y'all have any questions about any of this as we are going along, please feel free to throw them in chat. I'm monitoring the chat over here on my other page over here while I'm working over here, and we'll answer along the way. So does everybody feel good about their years and terms so far? Okay, not seeing anything in the chat. Yay, feel good. Okay, so now the next thing that I want us to move to and check is years and terms are what set your student enrollment records, those entry and exit dates. So remember, if my school year said 8-1 to 5-20, let's just pretend that it says 8-1 to 5-20. Then if I were to pick any student in the district, y'all know my favorite student. Let's go to Mickey. If I go to that student's entry enrollment record, what should I expect to see on the entry date? So remember, my years and terms were 8-1 to 7-31. Let's pretend it was 5-20 though, because that's going to be more realistic for you. I should see an entry date of 8-1, that exact same start date of my terms. What should be the exit date? It should be the day after your last day of school, which is where you ended your years and terms. So that's the next thing you need to check. Are your student entry and exit dates correct? The entry dates should match the start date of your school year. Now, keep in mind if some of y'all have like delayed starts for secondary groups of students, like I know sometimes, like with kindergarten kids, you might have A through N starting on one day and then, you know, whatever through Z the next day. Make sure their start dates are staggered, okay? Because you don't want absences on day one for kids. Stagger them so that you get correct ADA and ADM calculations on your kids. But one thing that I see a lot of districts do, especially when there's new people in the positions, they will argue with this exit date. They'll go, oh, why does it have an exit date of 8-1-2025 when my last day of school is 7-31-2025? Or in my normal case, why would it have an exit date of 5-21 if my end date of school said 5-20? Because withdrawals, so enrollment histories and course enrollments are always done the day after the last day. Everything with years and terms rides your calendar. Everything with enrollments extends that extra day on there. So you want to make sure those are correct. Other things that we've seen with enrollment records are when we get started really early on in PowerScheduler, before you even know what your district calendar is going to be, and you kind of guesstimate your dates, and you might put, you know, 8-7 to 5-20, just so they can start doing your scheduling. And you've got all those years and terms set up over there in PowerScheduler, and you committed your schedule. And it was a little after that that you realized that the calendar came out and you were actually going to start on 8-9 and get out on 5-20. Well, if you committed from PowerScheduler and overwrote any of the setup you might have done once you got your calendar, your entry and exit dates could possibly be wrong. If they are, I do have a document on how to go through and adjust all of your dates, because you have to remember that date would need to be fixed in years and terms, but then it has to be fixed in the student enrollment history, in your sections, in the section enrollment, which we call the CC table. So all of those tables would have to be adjusted, and I do have a document that will work you through how to do that in DDA. Take you 5 to 10 minutes to fix it all. Not a big deal, but something that has to be done or your attendance is going to go haywire. So that is the next thing that you need to check. Verify that your kids have accurate entry dates and accurate exit dates within your district. And if you realize that somebody has gone through and is adjusting these exit dates, then you can go in and get them realigned and have the conversations with counselors or whoever might be trying to fight the system, especially when they're resolving kids in provisional enrollment and they see the exit date one day off. They're like, no, our last day. And so you might see like 20 random kids who have a wrong exit date, but yet everybody that went through end of year rollover has the correct exit days. I see that a lot because of, again, having that conversation about these exit dates being one day off from your normal. Just to show you a couple of reports that I use a lot to make sure entry and exit dates align with the school year, we can look at, there's two PSCB reports. And remember, anytime I talk about PSCB reports, I'm talking about the free ones. I know some of y'all have the paid versions. They have these in the paid versions as well. But if you don't have paid and you want the free and don't have them, just email me and I'll give you the plug-in to get them in there. But in this validation set of reports, there is a invalid entry date and an invalid enrollment date report. Love these. So let's talk about these for just a second. The invalid entry date is going to be whenever you have somebody whose entry date doesn't fall within the first and last days of the school year. This is going to help you catch your kids that you have been enrolling along the way this summer, where you know how when we enroll, it tags that current date. I guarantee some of y'all have some kids in there that say, and their start of school is July something, because whoever was putting them in at that time just forgot to update the date to be the first day of school. This will catch these, and you can fix them all on this one screen. Now, the other report, and it'll also tell you if you have anybody whose exit dates go askew inside of there. The other one is the invalid enrollment dates. This one's the kind of golden child, because as many times as y'all have heard me harp in these webinars, and you've seen me put in my weekly newsletter that, hey, when you do a summer withdrawal, the entry date and the exit date have to be the exact same. And some of y'all are enrolling kids and you still see exit date 7/1/2024, entry date 8/10/2024, and you're like, it's not getting cleaned up. You see that and you're like finding it kid by kid, you can fix those in mass on this screen. So this will tell you any kid, like, look at this one right here, and I know these are old dates. It actually shows you any re-enrollments that you can fix instead of going into DDA. So here's a kid, Turner Bentley. It says exit date of 7/23 and an entry date of 8/10. So sure enough, this student, when they did the summer withdrawal, they forgot to go and fix that entry date. So I know I've got to make this match. You can do it right here. 7/23, 20, 21. So I could go through and knock all of them out here and hit submit, and it would clear that whole list at once of any kid who had some bad summer enrollment information or summer withdrawal information. So getting your entry and exit dates, not just on your active kids, but on your withdrawn kids, it's also going to be a huge game changer. And getting those re-enrollment records, because we want, when it comes time to do end of year next year, we're going to want that school enrollment audit report to be clean so that we can actually look for any big errors that might have slipped by us. So that's part two, or number two on my list of things that I want you to check to make sure that you're good to go, is that entry, enrollment, and exit dates are all good. Those entry and exit dates are also going to translate over into those course enrollments for the student. So I'm going to go back to the high school. You want to make sure that those are correct. You can also see anomalies there where start of school might be 8/1, and for some reason when you look at a course enrollment it says on 8/2. So you want to double check, and you can actually run that section audit report to see any mismatches. So I'm just going to go to Mickey. So again, we know he's got the 8/1/8/1. So if I go to courses and programs, I can look at the list. I can look at the start and end dates here. Now, I do see an 8/2 here. Why do I see an 8/2 here? Oh, I'm on a rotating schedule. So that aligns because my first day of school is a red day, the second day is a black day, so that enrollment is going to be on 8/2. but you want to look for abnormally odd things in there. And that is in that section enrollment report that we run at the end of the year for end of year. So just to show you where that is, data and reporting, reports, system reports. And I'm going to scroll all the way down. In this membership and enrollment area is this enrollment by section. Not enrollment by section. Oh, I just had a brain blip right there. Sorry, y'all. Scroll down. Section enrollment audit. That update just threw me off my game. So it will tell me if I have any possible conflicts. It also tells me this right here, any students who are enrolled in school but not in any classes. So if your registrar has enrolled a kid and has not put them in any classes, or they're passing them to a counselor and the counselor didn't know, this is great to check, because these are the kids who can possibly slip through as no-shows and be missed on the first day of school. I know a lot of people are like, hey, I need teachers to take roll. And I know some of you still have teachers do it on paper. Some of you have the market and PowerSchool. Whichever way you're doing that you've decided for your district, that's up to you. But you want to make sure all kids are accounted for. Well, if you're relying on everybody to look on a roster, no matter if it's in paper or in PowerSchool, if they don't have a schedule, they're not on a roster, and nobody can come to you and say, hey, did you know Andrew Abbott's not been at school all year? And so in December, you realize, oh, well, he was a no-show. So you go withdraw them out. But by that time, they're captured on your October fall report. And when you withdraw, you get that nasty error message over in AIM going, hey, you have a student who was captured in your fall report and is now going to be missing from your 9-month report. And y'all do not want to have those errors. I got so many emails last year of people who had received the errors, and they're like, how do I get rid of this error? And there's not a way, because it was a mistake on the district side. So make sure you're looking at that. If I did have any students who were enrolled in a class and their dates didn't align with their school enrollment, it would show it here. So you would be able to see them down here and be able to fix those at that time. So looking at entry exit dates, both for school enrollments and course enrollments, you want to kind of get ahead of those. So any questions on that before we move forward? Are y'all checking your reports just to kind of see where you're at on that? Okay. No questions. So let's go to my next thing in the list. So how many of you created a new grade level at one of your schools? Like maybe you've had a middle school the whole time, and maybe now that middle school has a 5th grade on it where it never had a 5th grade before, it was only 6th and 7th or something like that. If you have made any adjustments to any schools, or you have created a new school, one thing that you need to double check is your FTE settings. Now, here's the great thing about PowerSchool. Once you're established, when we do end of year, it pretty much takes the majority of everything that is set up, attendance, discipline, all that kind of fun stuff, and it just carries it forward. But if you have made any changes, you need to make sure to update. So one of the things that is typically updated are those grade levels. And when it comes to FTE management, so I'm going to go to, and this is at each individual school. So school management, it is under attendance. You get full-time equivalencies. Now, everybody across the state has this full-time attendance equivalent that has a conversion of percent time today, because that is our official state reporting. Everybody has to be set to percent time today. But when you click into this, it's this part down here that can change. You need to lay eyes on this at each one of your schools, just if you've never reviewed it. Because if you have reviewed it, then if you've checked any of the boxes last year, those check boxes move forward this year. But if I'm a new school and I had added a new grade level, that grade level would not be checked. So again, use my middle school example. If I had been at the middle school, and let's say my middle school is 6, 7, and 8, and last year we decided that we're going to shift our 5th graders to be this middle school as well. And so everybody probably went into district office, school info, and where you put the high and low grade for the school is 6 through 8, and you now have 5 through 8. You're like, yay, I got it. So once you roll over and go into the new year, you're going to have to come into here into your attendance and your full-time equivalency, and any new grade levels, like right here. I added ninth grade because now I'm going to have a handful of kids that are ninth graders are actually going to attend this middle school. I have to make sure to check that box so that the full-time equivalency is applied to also enrolled ninth graders that I have at this school. If you don't have those boxes checked, it's not going to calculate an ADA. It's not going to calculate your DAV correctly. Like nothing will get sent. So you want to make sure that all of the grades that are listed have a checkbox beside them, no matter how heavily that grade level is used. That's like when I showed the high school a while ago. Let me go back to that. And Kate, I'll get to your question in 1 second, love. Let's go back to the high school and look at that FTE. School management, attendance, full-time equivalency. Notice that it has -1 through 15. So I have a unique situation here at this high school, per se, because it's built off my old high school that I was at when I was at the district. This high school was a 9 through 12, but actually we know anybody who's 12 actually typically has 9 through 15 because you have to account for those kids who might come back up until they're age 21, those special education students. So everybody's high school really should be up through 15. So if you've not changed those grade levels, you might want to. But why does it go through -1? Because at this high school, we actually had a pre-K course taught at that high school. We used our education and teaching students in career tech to help facilitate that. It was a great setup. So I had to have pre-K. Well, when you set the grade level to high of 15 and low of -1, it's still going to have all those grade levels in between to be assigned to it. Well, I promise you, there are no kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth kids at this school. But I'm checking the boxes anyway, just in case we ever decided to swap and say that they could come in. I'd already have it set up and prepped. So you probably don't have that situation, but if you did do any shifting on your high or low numbers, as soon as you make that change in school info so that it's an allocated grade level, you want to come to this and you want to do that submit. Now, Kate asked a really good question on here. In your FTE, do you set it to meeting or daily? Because you get that option. That is the one thing the district can decide. This right here, you get no choice. You must do percent time today to stay in compliance with state code regulations and how our calculation is for 51% of the day to be present for a student. What this means, so we are all 1000% aware that there are two tables of attendance in PowerSchool. There's meeting attendance, or what we call period attendance, and there's daily attendance. Both of those tables calculate. What this does, this default attendance mode, tells PowerSchool which one of those tables you want it to look at to calculate the student's DAV. So for all my newbies on here, first, welcome to the family. Second, DAV is huge. That's a daily attendance value. We call them the 0 and the 1, 0 and 1, that are placed on that student record. A 0 meaning the student is absent and a 1 meaning the student is present. That is the value we get sent to calculate chronic absenteeism at the state. You as a district get to decide, do you want this school, this is a school by school setting, today, y'all. This is a school by school setting. Do you want that value, that 51%, to be looked at by looking at all the individual meetings and adding up those minutes and the codes in there to see if they've been there 51% of the time? Or do you want it to look at the daily record, meaning you are making sure your daily codes are all correct on your students to get that 0 or 1 by looking at the 51% of the day? It goes both ways. I will say this. If you are a school where you have students from your school that remote enroll into another school, you want to have meetings set up. That way your DAV calculation is looking at the time at the remote school and the time at the home school together across all those periods to get that 51%. If you don't do remote, then you can go either way, meeting or daily. I like using daily because I want to make sure that, it's one place I go and look. I can see if there's a code on there or not. It's absent or present. because we don't do check-ins and check-outs on the daily side. We just look at the code. So as long as I'm making sure everybody's code's correct, we're good. We know that if you have students who have to do the remote calculations, then you're still having to do that daily code by hand, because that new update we got put in last year that calculates that daily code automatically only reads from the meeting side of that home enrollment school. Still working on some of those updates, so just stay tuned on that. So you get to choose that, Kate. I hope that helps you on that one. Patrick asked, where was the enrollment audit report located? All right, Patrick, that is system management, reports, oh, wrong one, data and reporting, reports, system reports, and it is under the membership and enrollment area. It's these two, which, by the way, you know, my little student information systems data calendar that I have out there that gives you your monthly to-do list. Every month I tell y'all you need to check these two reports. So these should be very familiar for everyone out there. Like, bookmark them, put them as a task of each month. Go check this. Make it a Google Calendar invite for yourself. Give yourself 30 minutes. Go check these once a month. Kate, do you want -3 and -2 checked at elementary level if you have pre-K classes? Yes, because remember, our grade levels in the entire state actually go from -3, starting with those 2-year-olds that can come in for services referrals for our special education students, those child find students, from -3 all the way to 15. So you need to have those covered. If you know that you offer pre-K programs, you know at school $49.99, you need to make sure those grade levels go all the way down to -3, because those are really your services only kids, and you have a lot of those that can come in at 2 years old, because they go -3 at 2, -2 at 3, -1 at 4, and then kindergarten at 5 years old. So it follows that age. That way you never have to duplicate a grade level for those kids. So you want to make sure you're enrolling them at the right grade level according to their age for those early child find kids. So how do we feel about our FTEs? Have we double checked that all of our check boxes are there? And again, you need to check that for each school. So for my districts that are big, my Jeffersons, my Baldwins, my Mobiles, you know, those of you who have 30, 40 schools, yes, somebody needs to lay eyes at those schools. The good thing is they carry over. So really you should only have to check them if you've made any grade level configuration changes at your schools. Okay. The next thing that you want to check in your school management and scheduling is, let's just lay eyes on that bell schedule. Okay, bell schedules are another thing that copy over from year to year once you perform the end of year process. You want to make sure that if you have any adjustments made, like if you have decided to, you know, adjust and say that you're going to have more periods, less periods, or you're going to change the time within periods, that you have that schedule set up appropriately. You want to make sure that these are assigned, that they have the times within them, and that they're to count for your ADA should they need to be counted. You want to make sure that you have no gaps in between these periods, because, you know, we've had that conversation. We need to account for the whole part of the day, and a lot of people I see still, when I poke into some people's districts, I'll see that little 5-minute hallway period in there. But you don't want to have that. You've got to overlap that, so you find a middle ground and you put it in there, because if not, when you check in and out, it's going to cause issues with that calculation. It's also going to give those little gray lines when you look at the bell schedule view inside there. Remember that you can have periods that are not in the bell schedule, which will keep them from counting in that overall daily attendance calculation, because we have some of those rostering classes that we use, things such as that don't get put in there. Make sure you've got all those bell schedules there to go. Having a bell schedule means that you've also had cycle days and periods. One of the things that I would just like to remind people, if you've had the conversation about periods and you're like, hey, we're going to add an additional period because I want to do a services block or a advisory block or something like that, notice there's not a new button up here on periods. You can't add periods from this screen. You edit periods from this screen. So quiz time. Get your fingers ready and chat. Where do you go to actually add periods in this program? Chrissy Overby, you're the winner. Years and terms. I know, makes logical sense, right? No. So we got to go to school management, scheduling, years and terms. And it's not in the edit terms. It's in the term name. In the term name, this is where you dictate how many periods you're making available for the school and how many cycle days you're making for the school. So if you're not like an A day or a B day type rotation, you probably just have one cycle day. Maybe you want to go to an AB and you did it after the fact. That's how you would change it. But if you're like, hey, I want to add a couple of extra periods there just in case I want to schedule some stuff outside of it or do some, playing around, you can absolutely do that. You just go change a number here. And by changing the number here, it gives you submit. Over on the periods page, scheduling, periods, gives you another one. So now I got number 7 right there. And so with these, that's when I can click on them, rename them, and do whatever I want to with them. So you just want to double check your periods, want to make sure they're all there. Once you have validated you have your periods, you have your cycle days, what do they all roll into? Your calendar. So again, under school management scheduling, we have our calendar. You want to make sure this page is set up. So when you click on your calendar, you need to make sure you have cycle days, you have bell schedules. Those are the 2 most important to get started with scheduling. How many of you had the nice little error right after you committed your schedules and people started to try to go adjust on the live side? Y'all know that error I'm talking about? Cannot enroll students due to section enrollment error, blah, 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 which means it didn't have a date to do, because once you move from PowerScheduler over to the live side, everything becomes date driven. In order for it to recognize it as a date, it has to be associated with the bell schedule and an active cycle day. So you would want to go through your school calendar. You want to make sure that you have cycle days, bell schedules. In session needs to be marked for those that are in session. Membership value should be 1. You do not have to use tracks. Mine is just pre-configured to use the tracks. Not many people here do, because it really messes with your ADM in weird ways. Control everything through entry and exit dates. And session is in type. When you roll your calendar out, you want to make sure that you go in and that you put your holidays in there. So if I know I'm taking Labor Day off, then I'm going to go find September. What day is Labor Day this year? No clue. Anybody know off the top of your head when Labor Day is? Let's pretend it's September 9th. I have no clue. I would want to make sure to take that. Oops. Make it 0. If I check these, I need to uncheck these. I bet none of y'all use those. Make it a holiday, and I'm going to put Labor Day. Do that for your professional enrollment. If any of y'all have e-learning days already built into the calendar, do any of y'all have e-learning days already built in? Okay, you get credit for those days. Like your students are attending, they're still doing, so this needs to be regular in session. But you do need to make a note over here, e-learning day, for any of those days you have built in. So you want to make sure that all of your dates are good and that you have in session. Remember that when you're on these calendars, if you're wanting to verify because you're like, I know I have 180 days or 178 days or however it is, you can always come over here to verify the number of school days, and it'll tell you at the top. Now, I don't put any holidays in here because we train all year long. So I need all my days to be active so we can talk about attendance. You look for your target number. So if you know you have 180 days, you look for 180 days. And if you're like, why does it say 179? What have I missed? You can kind of look through the months right here to figure out what it's showing as active and what it's showing as not active. Here's another little fun fact. Anybody on the call in an elementary school? You know what everybody loves to celebrate in elementary school? What's our popular elementary holiday to celebrate in school? Carrie, you win. 100 days. Do y'all know the easy way to find when your 100th day of school is in this program? If you're in elementary school, When you are in here and you click this 24-25, notice it pops this little calendar up right here. It's kind of hidden. You only see it, like you don't see it just looking at the screen. I don't know why they hide this little goodie right here. Click that, get this calendar. When you click that calendar, it counts the days for you. So if I need to know when the 100th day is, there's my 100th day, is December 19th. So we're all wearing Dalmatian polka dots on the 20th because that's 101st day. I love how some schools have started doing the 101st day instead of the 100th. It's just cool. I love Dalmatians. So fun fact for that, if you're elementary and you want to verify the number of days, you can use that as well. So check your calendar. Make sure they are in session. If this has not been filled out and your first day of school is not checked, what's going to happen when all your teachers go in to take attendance? They're not going to be able to. So write this down. If you have somebody run to you and go, I can't take attendance today, one of two things has happened. Either one, the date has not been turned on as an in-session day, or the cycle day is on the wrong cycle day. It could also be that your section is set up to have the wrong day, so check the start date of that section in the teacher schedule to make sure it's correct. But typically it has something to do with this calendar right here. So we're all good with our calendar, right? Calendar is also something else that can be pushed out from district level. And just in case y'all aren't familiar with what I'm talking about when I keep saying some things that can be pushed out from district level, there is a process called batch school setup that gets some of the big things that you can set and then push out. And I always forget where it's at, which is why I love this little search page. So if I search batch, I know batch school setup is actually district management, scheduling, and calendar, or I can just click it here. How many of y'all love that? That's quick search. I use it for everything. So quick batch school setup allows me to actually set up once years and terms, calendar, reporting terms, and quick lookup, and push them to all the schools at one time instead of having to go into each individual school and set them up. So where I went through and set up years and terms individually at each school, I could have come here and put it in. Actually, I did put it in here and pushed it. For my calendar, I have set the calendar up at the high school. I can't set and push my calendar to the rest of the schools because it uses A and B cycle days and the rest of the schools just use A. So I could set up just an A day cycle district calendar and then push that to the rest of the schools to make this a lot easier. Okay? You can also do reporting terms and quick lookup. And when we get to reporting terms, I will actually show you how to do that through this as I set mine up. Now, once you have the calendar, you got the bell schedule, all that, you probably got a lot of scheduling going on. How many of you have had the counselors or you've noticed, hey, my course enrollment numbers aren't right? Like when I go to a teacher, I see a lot of zeros, or I know that I've withdrawn 5 people or dropped them from that class and it still says I have this many kids, or I know I've enrolled 20 kids into this class today and it still says I only have 5. Why are those numbers off? Okay. When you, and let me go to just to go teacher schedules and pick someone. I know I have students in this teacher. So say I have 28. Well, what if I know that I had just enrolled 20 kids into this French class, but it's not showing 0? There's a bug in PowerSchool that is I'm going to call it a legacy bug. In fact, it's been there so long, I don't know that it's a bug anymore. We're just going to call it how it works. When you do rollover and you're in the summer throes in between school years, when lots of changes are made, the program just can't keep up and it will not update those numbers. There is a way to force the numbers to update. It is a reset class count option that's under a special data operation. Not everybody's going to have access to this. It's probably going to be your admin. So let's take a look at where that's at. You're going to go to system management. You're going to go to server, and it's the special data operations. In the old UI, we called them the special functions. Special data operations here. I want to look for the one that says reset class counts right there. I'm going to choose that option. I'm not going to put anything in these parameters. I'm going to hit submit. Should I have any issues with those? And yes, you can run that at a district office level and just it'll look across all your schools at one time, or I can run it just at the one school. You can see right here, 0 section records were updated because I haven't done any movement. But if you've done movement, you're going to say, oh, 13 sections were updated out in the high school. If you run it from the district office, it's going to say, 13 at this school, 12 at this school, and whatever. Because if you've done a lot of movement and hadn't kept up, it'll redo those counts for you. I would say, and I know it's a pain in the rear to ask this for your district admins, but for your district admins to kind of run that at least once a day for your counselors, beginning of day, end of day, reset them all, just because it's hard. It does not keep up during the summer. It does not. If they're doing a lot of schedule changes, I remember being in the throes of it with the high school counselors, and they were making so many changes that I would run it like in the morning, at lunch, in the evening when I knew they were doing heavy. And as they backed off, I didn't run it as much. But they would call and go, "Hey, Stacy, it's going to be a heavy day. Can you run it here, here, and here?" Absolutely. So that they could see the numbers of kids who were actually enrolled in those classes when they're trying to figure out where to put kids. So that's a little known nugget as well. So we've got years and terms. We've got kids enrolled in classes. We've got kids enrolled in school. We've checked the dates. We've got a calendar. We've got class counts working. So now where do we need to go? We've even talked attendance. And really the FTE is the only thing you need to look at with attendance. Nothing else really needs to change. So now let's shift our direction to what I'm going to call the bigger group of settings that takes a little bit longer to talk about. All of the grading settings. All of the grading settings. Tracy just asked, do we use the no-show code for summer withdrawals? If it's a summer withdrawal, Tracy, I'm assuming that you know that they are withdrawing to go somewhere else. And when that is the case, you need to actually use the correct withdrawal and transfer code. The actual no-show code should only be used when you are checking them on the first day and they didn't show up and you have no reason why they didn't show up. You've had no communication. If you've heard from somebody that they are withdrawing, you need to use a proper withdrawal code. It's just for the ones who literally don't show up on the first day and you have no clue where they went. And then you are going to work like the FBI and CIA and try to find where those kids went so that you can get a proper withdrawal code on them at some point in time after school starts, because those no-shows will show up on your dropout report if you don't get those corrected. So that's kind of how you want to do with those. Your goal is to have 0 no-show codes when it's all said and done. And preferably before our snapshot in October. All right, so let's talk about grading. So one of the things that sometimes people will forget to do is set up the final grade reporting term setup. So when you create your years and terms, that literally just creates the links for you to start doing your scheduling. When it comes to adding in the grades, we have to create the buckets. The buckets are done in that final grade reporting term setup. Now I'm going to show you where to get those in 2 places. I'm going to show you where to get them in here because you need to set them up in one school. Once you get them set up in one school, you can then use that batch school setup function that I showed you just a minute ago to push that setting to the rest of the schools. So I'm going to set it up here at my high school. And y'all just kind of bear the pain with me because I want to go through the year, the semester, and the quarters because I really want to talk about dates because I see a lot of grading issues with this. So I want to have this conversation because it's been 2 years since we really went in depth here. So where do I find where I set up those buckets at? I'm going to go to school management. I'm going to go to academics, and I'm going to go to create final grade reporting terms. It's this one right here. Create final grade reporting terms. Okay. And just in case any of y'all are like, hey, because I know some of y'all like to take screenshots as I'm going through some of this stuff, perfectly fine. There's your breadcrumb. Notice it has nothing. It has my years and terms. So what it does is it takes those years of terms and it brings them over. So if you don't have anything set up here, your teachers who are like Johnny on the spot, and we all have them, it's the first day back for teachers. I'm going to go ahead and start setting my grade book up because I know I'm going to be giving these assignments the first week. And they get in there and it says, no reporting terms configured, contact your school administrator. And you're going, what? This is the what? If they've got that message over in Power Teacher Pro, this has not been set up. So what we have to do here is go through our buckets and put in there what we want our buckets to be. And you have to do them for each level of these. You have to take these in silos. So I want you, if you have yours, pulled it up and look at it and double check it as I go through my explanation and in creating mine. If you haven't created yours, then jump in here with me. Notice also, I always like to write down my little list of my dates. I don't even know if y'all can see that, because I need to know when the start and end of each one of these are, even though they're right here in front of my face, they kind of go away a little bit. So I want to start with my year-long classes. So remember, for the 24-25 year, what I enter in up here will only apply to classes that I have in my schedule that start in August and end in May. Every one of these are independent of each other. All of your classes are boxed year-long, those who only live in semester 1, those who only live in semester 2, and those who only live in the quarters. So I'm going to start with my year-long classes. I'm going to click New. What all buckets do I want to show up? Do I want to store grades for? Do I want to put on report cards for in year-long classes? For me, I want to do a quarter 1, a quarter 2, a quarter 3, a quarter 4. I'm going to give a midterm in December. I'm going to give a final exam in May, and then we're going to calculate all that together to get a final grade. Now, you can use that setup. A lot of people sometimes will throw in some S1s and S2s because they want the final grade to be a 50-50 on those. And some people will just go ahead and go, I want a 20, 20, 10, 20, 20, 10 on the Q's and the X's. It's whichever way your district wants to configure it. Just make sure you understand what you are wanting to do. So I'm going to start naming my buckets. So I'm going to say Q1, and it is going to be from 8/1/2024 to 10/15/2024. Okay, so it is there inside of there. Hit submit. That's going to allow me to store a quarter 1 grade for my year-long classes. I'm going to build out quarter 2. So quarter 2 is going to start the day after quarter 1. So quarter 1 ended on 10/15. So quarter 2 is going to start on 10/16/2024. Okay, now here's where we have to stop and think. And why am I stopping on quarter 2? So I'm thinking about the flow of my year. I do a quarter 1, I do a quarter 2, I'm going to do a midterm exam for these year-long classes. That midterm exam is happening in December, right at the end, or what we say within quarter 2. However, those are separate buckets. Quarter 2 and exam 2 are separate buckets and cannot overlap. So the end of quarter 2 in my calendar, in my years and terms, is December 20th. Okay. I have to have room to do the exam, and you have to have a start and end date, which means minimum you have to have 2 days for a bucket. So if my quarter 2 ends December 20th, what is the latest I can end quarter 2 in order to get an exam bucket in there to be counted all together with this? Who can tell me that? What is the latest date I can put for right here, knowing that quarter 2 ends December 20th? Oops. That's right, 12/18. So I've got to actually end quarter 2 on 12/18, which means my teachers have to know, and I always teach, for them to look at that date range when they're over in Power Teacher Pro beside the buckets, that for all of their normal quarter 2 grades, that they have to be entered on dates in between this date range for it to be considered part of the quarter 2 average and not in the final exam average. So 10/16 to 12/18, submit. Now, oh, and I don't know why this all of a sudden started running slow on me. I'm going to hit new and build my midterm exam. We know for exams, we use those X's. So because I'm giving 2, one's going to be an X1, one's going to be an X2. They can't both be X1s in the same line or they will overwrite each other. So this is, again, in that quarter 2 area. and it's going to be the last 2 days of the quarter, which is going to be 12/19 and 12/20. Okay, and that is going to give me my entire semester 1 piece of grading. Now, if you are a district that's like, well, I want to see a semester average, maybe I'm not given credit there, but I want to see it, then you could build in an S1, and it would be, because it's an overarching bucket, it would be 8/1 to 12/20 to say, hey, I need you to take everything in Q1, everything in Q2, and everything in X1 and put it in there. I do also know there are districts who split the credits in your long classes, especially at high schools. And so they'll have an F1 and an F2 in this line right here. And what that means is they're saying, okay, when we get through in December, this F1 is going to be Q1, Q2, and X1. Maybe it's like a 40, 40, 20 put together. And we're going to award half the credit on that average right there. And then they're going to turn around and do the same thing for Q3, Q4, and X2. And in an F2, award another half credit. So you might see that inside of there. It depends. I don't set up with an F1, F2, so just keep that in mind. Alicia, my top column doesn't look like yours, but the dates are there. I don't have gray areas on my chart. I don't have gray areas. Alicia, you might have to send me a screenshot of yours if you want to email it to me, and I can take a look at it to see it, because I would have to see that to, I think, understand what you're saying. But let's keep building out and see how different it looks when we get through. And Alicia, do you just have that one column? Is it just the 24-25 school year? You don't have semesters and quarters? Because it could be that you're maybe an elementary school that only does year-long classes. And if that's the case, that is perfectly fine. You're not going to see all the way down at all the schools necessarily. All right, let's build out second semester. So I want to have a quarter 3. So quarter 3, so remember, I make, students come back on New Year's Day, because again, that's how we roll, overachievers. And we are going to end quarter 3 in March, so mid-March, 3/15/2025. Very simple. Quarter 1 and 3 are the easiest ones to set up. And then I want to go to quarter 4. So I'm going to put Q4 in here. So quarter 4 starts the day after, so 3/16/2025. Now here's where we got to do that finagling again. So remember, I'm going to build in a final exam bucket right here, that X2, or if all you're given is a final exam, it would be an X1. It just depends on if you already used this or not. So if the end of my year, so remember my year's different, yours is going to be Mayish, mine's in July because of how I run mine. So if my last day is 7/31, and I need to give 2 days for my exam, or if you give 3 days, I don't know how many days y'all give for your exams. You get to make that choice, but you have to have at least 2. If I do 7/31, then where am I going to need to stop quarter 4 so that I can put 2 days in for my final exam? 7/29. Okay, so I had to back it up 2 days, because that then allows me to go in here and put in an X2 on 7/30 and 7/31. And now I have encompassed all of second term, which starts January 1st and ends July 31st. Or in your case, if you ended on May 20th, then quarter 4 would need to end on May 18th, so you could do the 19th and 20th to be your exams. Again, if you did a semester 2 bucket, S2, it would need to start January 1st and end 7/31. It needs to encompass all those buckets. I, however, am not going to do semesters. I'm just going to do an overarching year right here. because this has got me all my individual grades. Now I'm like, I need all those put together to give me a final grade that I'm going to award credit to, or it be the end all be all of this grade. Those are my F buckets. So I'm going to have a F, not a F21, an F1. So I want F1 to encompass everything. It's the one that I'm allowed to stack buckets. This is how you're going to get the actual reporting term weighting going when we talk in a minute about the actual grade formulas you're going to push through. So F1 is all year because I'm working in that year-long term. So it's going to be 8/1/2024 to 7/31/2025 and submit. A lot of work there. Completely understand that. This gets you just the configuration for your year-long classes. So if you're block scheduling like I am here, I've got year-long classes, semesters, and quarters. The only ones I've got fixed are the ones that run all year long. I've got to do this exact same work to the semesters and to the quarters so that they all have their own individual buckets, because we know when we go to store grades, they're all independent of each other. So I've got to come down here in semester 1 and basically recreate those little buckets for it. So I'm going to have quarter 1, which is 8/1/2024 to 10/15/2024. Submit. And pause and think. Love the wait time. Oh, Alicia, you sent it to me. All right, quarter 2. So Q2 starts the day after, so 10/16/2024. And here's where we again have to think that 2-day backwards, because even in my semester classes, I'm going to give them a final exam. Now, if you don't give a final exam like middle schools or elementary schools, you're not worried about these X's. You can just run it to the end. Only if you're giving final exams do you have to do this backup of 2 days. So if I end December 20th, I got to end this one on 12/18. So I got a quarter 1, a quarter 2, and a wait time. And then I got to put in an X1. And it is going to be 12/19 to 12/20. So those are all of my little bits to go inside of there. Oh, Alicia, I know exactly why yours is doing that. So you have this, you don't have any of the buckets. So you need to do these buckets like I am, where you just have new. But the reason they're all stacked instead of in a pyramid, you have an old plugin installed in your server that needs to be taken out. There is a plugin. I'll have to go back into my notes. I sent it out in one of the newsletters last year. There's a plugin that used to basically put these dates down here for you. It was a reporting term. So it's got reporting term in the name. And then last year, PowerSchool went, oh, that's a good idea. Let's build it into functionality. And so these come in naturally now. But if you still have that plugin installed that you don't need anymore, it makes this shift to the left. Y'all, I'm going to hold my phone up to see if y'all can kind of see this. This is, if you see yours doing like what hers is right here, that's what the issue is. It's that old plugin that you need to take out, and it's got reporting term in the grade. If somebody finds it before I do, throw it in chat for everyone. That's what yours is, Alicia. So 2 things. You need to put in your little buckets because you haven't built buckets yet. And you're good. Your years and terms are fine. You just need the buckets. All right. Now, let's go back into here. I got to finish this one. So I'm in semester 1. So I've given a quarter 1, a quarter 2, and a final exam. And now I'm going to finalize, because whatever classes are in this area right here are only lasting from August to December. And then I'm finishing them, and the kids are getting their whole credit for them. So I need an F1 here to be the final grade for these semester 1 classes. It's got to encompass all of those buckets. So 8/1/2024 to December 20th. 2024. Tip to tail. Okay. Tennille, show reporting term setup date. So that's what we're doing now, Tennille, is setting these dates up for those reporting terms. Oh, show, that's the name of the plugin. Ah, thank you. Thank you so much. If you've got that plugin in, y'all need to go and uninstall it and delete it. Like, uncheck the box for enable and delete it out. Thank you so much. All right, so now let's do semester 2 because I've got some classes that are semester classes. So if I go into semester 2, got to do the same thing, grab all my buckets for semester 2. So that's going to be quarter 3, which is New Year's Day again, 2025, to March 15th, 2025. Easy peasy. And wait time. Go into new again. Let's build quarter 4. Now, because I know I'm going to give an exam, I have to know that that exam is going to come at the end of quarter 4, which means I have to adjust my quarter 4 dates. So it starts 3/16/2025, and where I did end, May 20th or whatever, in this case, July 31st, my last day again can be 7/29/2025 because I need to give 2 days to get an exam in here. So I back that up, submit. And now come in here. Now here's where I'm going to throw people for a loop. I'm going to give an exam. So it's an X bucket. What am I going to use? X1. But Stacy, why can you use an X1 here and you couldn't use one earlier? Let's get this saved and take a look at it. Yes, Selena, disable and delete the show reporting term setup dates plugin if you have that one installed. Okay, why am I allowed to use an X1 here and an X1 here when up here I had to use an X1 and X2? Well, before I answer that, let's go ahead and set up the back end of this because I've only got one more. I got to get my F term. Because I know I got quarter 3, quarter 4. It's going to be like a 40%, a 40%, a 20% calculation or something like that. I'm going to have an F1. I'm going to use F1 again. And it's going to encompass everything in second semester. So that's going to be 1/1/2025 to what you would say May something, and I would say 7/31/2025. Again, you do not use these July dates. Submit. Why do I get to use F1, F1 here? But a little while ago, when I said if you were going to do halves up here, you had to use F1 and F2. Okay? Each line of this pyramid is independent from the other. In each line, each cut box is independent of each other. This F1 has nothing to do with this F1 and will not override it. They're not in the same block. If you are configuring them within the same block, you cannot repeat the same bucket or it will overwrite. When you are in different blocks, because these are self-contained classes, that's the way I need to refer to them, self-contained classes. So when I take Algebra 1 Semester 1 and finish it and get an F1, that has no bearing on my U.S. history that I'm taking in Semester 2 that has an F1 inside of there. Now, I do know some districts who have an F1 and F2 set up here want to say, Stacy, just because our people are very OCD and want to see things in columns the right way, so they want to see classes that were in semester 1 awarded as an F so they can see it in that column, and those that were taken in semester 2 to say F2. Is it okay if we do F1 and F2 here? Sure. That just means you've got to have more bucket columns in your reports. If you're okay with that, that's fine. Pretty much everybody does F1s and F2s, has to do some recalculations anyway along the way. So it's completely up to you, to your district. All right, so that gets our semesters. Now we go to quarters. Okay, now we go to quarters. Now this is where I flip people out on these. So let's think about your quarters. There are 2 ways to set up quarters. Some people give exams. Some people just have a final average. Let's set them up with exams. Let's pretend that I'm giving exams all the time. So if it's quarter 1, So quarter one is 8/1/2025 to 10/15/2025. Oh, but I'm given an exam. I'm given an exam in this block. I've got to back the dates up, so I can't end it in 10/15. I've got to end it on 10/13. Oh, 2024, not 2025, and submit, because I have to make room for that exam. X1 is on 10/14. I had to stop there. 10/14/2024 to 10/16. No, 15/2024. Because I want to have, maybe it's an 80% and a 20% or something like that, if you do those. And then have an F1 that encompasses that entire quarter, 8/1/2024 to 10/15/2024. Okay? Pretty easy to do that. Now, here's the thing. Because each one of these quarters are independent of each other. When I go through here, I can set that same thing up. I could literally use Q1, F1, X1 all the way across here. That confuses a lot of people. So a lot of people will keep the quarter recognition in there and just reuse X1 and F1 because they're, again, independent. So when I go over here to quarter two, I'm going to do Q2 from 10/16/2024 to 12/18/2024 because I had to back up the 2 days knowing I end on the 20th, so I can get me an exam in here again. And X1, 12/19/2024 to 12/20/2024. So I've got a quarter two grade, an exam grade, and now I'm going to throw in that F1 grade, which is going to encompass all from 10/16 to 12/20. And that's perfectly fine because most all of us use Q1, 2, 3, 4 anyway, so it's fine if you need to do that. But again, I'm keeping my F1 because it's the final grade in just that one block across that line. This F1 has nothing to do with this F1. If I'm doing 9 weeks government econ classes, then the F1 in government has no bearing on the F1 over here in economics that are in 2 totally different months. Now, here's the thing. If you are a district that does not give an exam, so basically your quarter grade is that final grade, then literally the only thing you have to set up is the F1. So if I did not give exams in, let's say, third and fourth quarter, then I could just do F1 and run it from 1/1/2025 to 3/15/2025. And that's what the block would look like. Now, if some people are like, but I want to see a Q3 grade on there and a F1. Okay, they're going to be the exact same thing. You don't have to set up another bucket. You can actually finagle that when you're storing grades to say, hey, F1 is Q3, so take F1 stored as Q3, and then take F1 and store it as Q1, and you're just going to see 2 lines of the exact same grade. If your people are like staunch on that and want it to be there, you can do that. You don't have to set those buckets up independently to say the same thing. So same thing here. Let's say quarter 4, I'm not going to give any exams. I'm just going to set it up as an F1, and it's going to run from 3/16 to 7/31. So if you don't give exams, you're just going to see F buckets there. You're just getting, everything's going to go into the final grade. If you do give exams, you need to back those up. So you really want to make sure that your final grade reporting terms are set up correctly. You want to be very careful with your dates because if you happen to overlap any dates on individual buckets, you're not going to be able to choose the correct buckets when we go look at our formulas here in a minute if we push down our traditional grade setup formulas into the schools. So I know that took a lot of work. I mean, we spent 15 minutes on that right there, but that's huge because this drives so many things. So before we move to the next thing, does anybody have any questions? Because this is one of the things, like, be honest, how many of you looked at your pyramid just now and went, oh, we have not set that up yet, forgot about it? People do it. It happens. It is okay. That's why I wanted to do this now so that you could catch it now before you move forward on it. So any questions from anyone on this pyramid right here and making sure it's set up? Again, if you're in elementary school, you don't have near this that has to be done. You can probably just do your quarters and your final and you're good. Okay. We've got this set up. I always just like to submit a page when I see a submit button to make sure it's all there. Even though I know where it's realistically saved, I just like to hit that button. So now that I've set this up at one school, let's say all the schools in my district use this exact same pyramid right here. I want to not have to go through that 15 minutes on all of the other schools. I want to take this and push it to the rest of the schools. Let me show you how to do that at district office. So I can come to district office. And I'm going to go back to that batch school setup page, which we know is under academics. And I always lose it. I always have to search this one. Where's it at? District, oh, scheduling. District management, scheduling, batch school setup. Because, you know, putting it under calendar makes sense, right? All right. Here, I have push years and terms, not push calendar, but I want to get to this area because this is what we just set up, the reporting terms. And notice right here for the high school, it does show a checkbox because it is configured. So I'm going to click Run Setup Steps. Now, you might think you have to go through this progression right here because it kind of looks like it's a flow chart where it says, hey, set up your years and terms. I've already set that up. There's nothing else to push. So I'm going to hit Next. And it's like, hey, you've got all these schools that don't have a calendar. You need to work on that. Well, I don't want to work on that right now. I want to do my years and do my reporting terms. So I can ignore this and hit Next to just kind of move through. Now I'm at the reporting terms. I want to take those reporting terms I just did at the high school and I want to push them to all my other schools. So I'm going to choose the source school to be Alabama High School. And even if I needed to edit, like I could have developed these right here, I just didn't. But if I need to go double check anything, I can. I can also see that if I had chosen another school, there's nothing there and I would not want to push that to anyone because here's the thing, once you push, you cannot push again. It would have to be done manually at the school level. So get it right the first time. So Alabama High School, my reporting terms are good. I'm happy with them. I now come down here and go, okay, which one of these schools do I want to push this to? And maybe you have a combination of schools. Maybe this one needs to go to 3 schools in the district, and then you need to set another one up at another school and push it to the others because they don't have quarters or something like that. You can do that. You can choose all or you can choose one. I want it to go to all of them. Boom, boom. Here we go. Check them, check them, check them. Check away. Sometimes I even push it to these that don't use anything just because I'm like, why not? Push calendars, and you don't get those, errors on them. Kara's like, oh, I forgot you could do this. Yes, it does save a ton of time doing it through batch school setup because now I'm going to click push reporting terms. And as long as I have the years and terms set up at those schools, it's going to take them through. If I don't, it's going to give me an error and I'll leave those on the list. I don't think I have historical preschool set up because it is an inactive school. So it's probably going to throw me that error, but we're going to wait and see. But yeah, this is a gem. And this whole batch school setup actually has only been in existence the last 3 years. It came about right when our state was implementing 3-4 years ago. It is a gem. Loading, loading, loading. There's my wait time. And so it tells me here are all the things that it just pushed over. Now, it will tell me what is pushed and it'll tell me what was not pushed. And you know why it will tell me it's not pushed on these? Because I don't have those terms set up in years and terms. If I don't have them set up, it can't push them to them. So that's kind of like your error list on these. So if I had pushed everybody this same years and terms, then I shouldn't have anything over here. So just keep in mind if you do get anything like this and you intended for everything to push, then you're going to have to go fix it by hand, but that means first fix your years and terms, then you can come fix your reporting terms. And then you close that out. And notice all your target schools are gone because they now have a reporting term inside of there. Okay? Questions on reporting terms? Anything else? All right, so once we have reporting terms, what's our next favorite thing we've got to go look at that involves these reporting terms? Our traditional grade calculation formulas. So we know when it comes to the teacher grade book, there's formulas that you put in there of, how much weight is first quarter going to count and second quarter going to count toward getting that overall year in average. The majority of districts out there set this up at district level, push it down to the schools and lock it so that it's there and they can't change it because maybe you have a district policy that tests have to be 60 and homework has to be 40 or something like that. Some of you give the flexibility of the teachers in the district to create their own and they have to do it inside of Power Teacher Pro. If you are the district that pushes, let's talk about how you have to go and do that. So I need to cancel out. So I'm going to close out of this right here. If you are going to push these formulas from the district level, you need to be in district office. You are going to go to district management. And you would think because these are grades, it's going to be under academics, but it's not. These formulas don't really go to grades, they go to the grade book. Where is the grade book at? It's in Power Teacher Pro. Power Teacher Pro is an application. So you've got to go to district management, you've got to go to applications, and you've got to go to traditional grade calculation formulas. So these do not push over from year to year. And in fact, if you had tried to go in here and notice I've got all of my schools in here, so I have to hit the edit pencil because that part pushes over. But if you did not have your years in term, or excuse me, your final grade reporting term set up and you came to this screen and expanded, because notice I've got all of my, what I'm going to call bits and pieces to my years and terms. So remember for years and terms, I had 24, 25. I had S1, S2, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. If you did not have those reporting terms set up, this would not pull over. It would say reporting terms not configured. It would just give you that. So you wouldn't have any grades that would be able to be worked here. Because I set my terms up, it actually remembered from last year that I had things set. So if you have these, it actually pulls these over. And you only have to go change or adjust if you've made any changes to how you configured your buckets from last year. Because I configured my buckets for year-long, semester, quarter one, and quarter two exactly like I did last year, notice it already has check boxes behind saying they're all ready to go. But 3 and 4 have a little exclamation mark, which means something's wrong. If it doesn't match exactly how you had your buckets last year, then you've got to come and set them for this year. If you match them exactly, then you're good to go because look, my quarter one already knows it needs to be classwork 60%, test 40%. And it knows that my F1 is quarter one is 20%, quarter two is 20%, quarter three, quarter four, my exams, like it knows each one of those. It knows my exams are already test 100%. Okay. Where did I go to do this, Patrick? I am on district management, applications, traditional grade calculation formulas. Okay. So because I altered Q3 and Q4 and showed you how to create those where they were just buckets instead of exam grades and quarter grades in them, I've got to go set these so that I'll be able to work in the grade book in my quarter classes. So how do you set them? Well, when you set them, it's going to give you all of the buckets that you put in that term. So if I had traditionally put Q3 and X1 and F1, I should see all three here. You would need to edit. And the choices that you're going to have are total points, reporting terms, standards, and categories. Most people are going to use categories or reporting terms. Most of the state uses weighted reporting terms where you have those categories like test, homework, lab, quizzes, however y'all dictate that out. And so if that were the case, I would choose categories. These are the categories that have been set up at your district office and what you would put the weight of them on. In this case, because I am, whoops, I want to remove you. Because I am on an F1, that's going to be a reporting term. It's going to say, well, which reporting term are you wanting to look at? Well, if I don't have any quarters or an X1, I can't use reporting term. You only want to use reporting term when you're getting an F1 that is comprised of other buckets. So before I set that one, let's look, cancel. Yeah, I don't want to do anything. Look here. If I look at my F1 here, notice it is made up of the other buckets. So I'm saying I want term weighting in F1 because I need it to be comprised of Q3, Q4, and that final exam at the end of Q4 and what they are worth. So that's when you would use reporting terms. If you're in individual categories, like if I'm just getting an overall Q3 grade, the individual Q3 grade is made up of those individual assignments in classwork and test categories entered in by the teacher. Also, here is where you set, can the teachers edit these formulas or not? So just because you set them up does not mean you have locked them. You have to make sure if your intention is that you want this formula to go down to the schools and that they cannot edit or adjust it, then you need to say that that is a no. You put no, and that way it locks, and so they can't change the 40 and 60. At this high school, I've got it mocked up where I'm going to push this formula to them. We say, hey, you've got to have two categories. You've got to have a classwork category and a test category. You get to choose your weights because we give them minimum values where tests have to count at least 50%. They can adjust. Some AP classes have them counting 70%. If you say yes, it pushes it and allows for the adjustment. If you say no, then it hard codes those numbers and they can't change them in the classroom. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go back to quarter 3 and quarter 4. I'm going to say, okay, I've got an F1. I need to edit, and I really need to get rid of, see, I tried to pull in what I did last year, which is I had a Q3 and an X1. I don't have a Q3 and an X1 this year. So I'm going to remove that one and then say this one needs to be, it can just be categories and it can be that, or it can be total points and be 100% and it takes it across the way with it. So I'm going to leave it as a total points. And I'm going to do the same thing on quarter 4. Get rid of that. Because see, I can't choose any kind of reporting term. So it's just going to be total points and submit. So what you want are little green check boxes. Now, how many of you see this big old, like, Stacy, this is not a good word in PowerSchool, the word orphaned. If you have ever, at any point in time we have used PowerSchool, like changed bucket namings or something within the bucket in there, it throws them down here and puts them in orphan records and gives all these exclamation marks. And you do not have to worry about it. Ignore what you see down here because usually this just means it's not being used. Remember how it copied things over? It's all right. Leave it because we're not using it. It is orphan, but we're not using it. It's all good. You want to make sure the things that say under terms have little green checks all throughout there. And you make sure you applied it to the right school. So you can have plenty of differentiation. Like I have one for my high school. I had different ones for my intermediate schools. I even had different ones for different grade levels within a school. Because here's the thing, you can push formulas down to the entire school. Notice also there is a tab that says courses. So maybe it's like, well, I need everybody to have this formula, but if we are taking this specific course, I need everybody who teaches this course to have this formula for them instead. You also, and it can only be done at the school level. So let me flip over to the school. and go to school management, teacher applications. It's called teacher applications here, and it's called applications at district office. Traditional grade calculation formulas. Oh no, where's my section one at? It's changed. It's in a different area. I have to remember. Oh, it's when I'm in. Oh, I don't know that I've got it turned on for one. It's in a different spot to be able to go and do those. All right, I'm gonna have to put that one in there because I don't remember that one off the top of my head. But sections are in a separate area, and it is done at the school level. And I don't think it's got its own page. Let's see. Oh, maybe it is here. Maybe they separated it out in the new UI. Yep, that's what it did. So if I were wanting to, and I think I did this at the middle school. Let's see if it's still there. Just because the middle school that we copied this from is the one that I ran that we did that in. So it's in the same area, teacher applications, and it is grade preferences for sections. So to get to the courses or school district, you have to be there, but here's for sections. That's only going to appear on the school side, not at the district office side. No, it didn't bring any over. But if you wanted to do that, and I don't have any sections here, you would hit that add button. You would then be able to go into the sections and say, okay, because you can't do it by grade level. That's something else that people have asked. Can you do a category by grade level? And the answer is no, which is why before we had the option to do it to courses, I had to do it by sections at one of my schools. Yeah, give me 1 second, get back in there. I want to show you what it looks like. So when I used to have the school that had 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it was on a progressive. So in 6th grade, it was like tests were 45, daily was 55. For 7th grade, it was a 50-50, and then for 8th grade, it was 55-45. So it showed it progressing up to make it harder. I couldn't do it by course to do 6th, 7th, and 8th grade courses, but I could do it by section. So for every section that I built out, I could say, hey, I want to take, let's say, these courses, and I want to apply this formula to it. That'd be the one that you set up on that other screen that we clicked into earlier. So there is a way to do it at sections, doing this method, or you can do it for entire courses back at district office using that method, or you can do it for the overall class, or excuse me, overall school. Whichever is the lowest denominator here takes the most precedence. So even if I push something down to the school, and then pushing something down to a course overrides school settings. And if you push to a section overrides a course and overrides a school setting, if that makes sense. I hope that does. So those are how you get your grade formulas on there. So any question, all right, we had a couple. If you do not have quarter-long classes, is it correct that you would not have a quarter bucket and you would not have a reporting term for said quarter? Quarter grade would be the year long, in the year long, and semester long reporting terms only. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. If you do not have quarter length classes, there is no need for you to have that bottom and have those buckets in there. You still will need that quarter bucket up in those other lengths of classes, just not in that individual quarter class. But like I said, Carla, some people like to have those quarters already set up because of pulling attendance to report cards in those time frames. That's the only way to get that to calculate correctly, is to have those set up. But that's in years and terms, not in reporting terms. Yes. All right, and so we've done the big stuff. We've got attendance there, we've got a calendar there, we can schedule kids, kids can start school, we can take attendance on the kids, we can even put grades in on kids. But now let's talk about some of that picky little stuff that has to be reset each year. And actually, some of these you have to redo every term. Like every time you end quarter one, you got to go change these. And in quarter two, you got to change these. So one of the things is locked reporting terms. Do you lock your reporting terms for your teachers? That can be done from the school level. So notice right here under school management, teacher application, lock reporting terms. I'm at the high school. If I want to say, ooh, it's thundering outside. If I want to enable the lock terms, it's here. If I need to update, because you can only kind of do this 1 quarter at a time. So I've got to look at first quarter. When do I want to lock my first quarter grades right now for my teachers? And maybe I have to take into weekends into effect. You know, if the end of the term is on a Monday and I want to give them 3 school days, then I'm going to put, 3 right here. That was always my practice. I always gave teachers 3 days after the end of the reporting term to finish everything up, and then we locked it. There is a way to set this for all your schools on one page, so you do not have to go into every single school. So I'm not going to change it here. I'm going to show you where this is at district office. It is under district management, applications. Again, locked reporting terms affect the gradebook. Gradebook is an application, so it's under Power Teacher Pro here at district office. Here is where I can see it for every single school, and I can edit them on their individual flyouts. So right now, I pretty much have virtual program does not have any lock at all. But all of my schools I've set up to lock 4 days after the reporting term and warn the teachers 2 weeks, except the high school, because I can't get them to, understand. I've warned them 30 days ahead of time and go, there's no reason you shouldn't have seen that yellow bar. But you don't need to have overkill like that. Kara says, what's best practice for locking grades? I definitely recommend locking grades because you don't want grade books to get out of sync from when you store them. And you also want to make sure you're locking grades before you store grades. Because if not, there can be times where teachers change grades before you lock that grade book down and will again get them out of sync. It really is your district office preference as far as what to set these at. I would say at least get that banner up there to warn teachers for 2 weeks ahead of time. I wouldn't sneak it in on last minute because we know some of them wait to the last minute to put grades in anyway, as much as we harp on that. As far as when to lock them after reporting term, that's up to you. And this date usually has to be changed every term because of weekends. If you say, I'm going to give you 4 school days to lock that, well, if, first quarter, 4 days is within the week, then they get really 4 days. But if 4 days encompasses a weekend, then maybe you're really giving them 6 days because you don't want to count those weekend days. So you have to adjust that because this counts actual calendar days, not in session days of your school year. Here's something else to note. At the end of the school year, so when you have flipped from quarter 3 to quarter 4 and you're in quarter 4 and you want to adjust these dates, you know how sometimes at your elementary schools you want the teachers to be finished with grades like 4 or 5 days before the end of the school year because you want to get report cards ready to go home? You can put negative numbers here. So if I put a -3 at my primary school, that means it's going to lock the grade books 3 days before the 9 weeks ends, so that they can then put their grades in and have them done and lock it before school gets out. So just know that you can do negative numbers in quarter 4. A lot of people do that. So that's one of the settings you want to make sure you have laid your eyes on and rechecked and to see that you've got those locked. All right, another thing to look up, and this is something that can be done in the batch school setup or done from the school level. So I'm going to show you from the school first and then show you in batch school setup. So it's your quick lookup preferences. So when you go to a student's quick lookup screen and you see that grid that's got, what they see as far as attendance, what they see as far as quarters and such, there's actually a configuration page for that you have to look at each year. And it is under school management, and it's a display preferences, quick lookup. So each individual school can see this, or you can push from district. But it says, hey, I want these buckets all shown for them. And it kind of comes with these. It turns everything on for default. It says, yes, I want all these buckets seen by the teacher. I want all of them enabled for the parent and all of them enabled for admin to see. This is also where you flip what source of data. Am I looking at the grade book or am I looking at stored grades? Everything starts out, you want them looking in the grade book. But as soon as you store grades, so into first quarter comes, you store grades, you want to come back to this page and you want to flip it to stored. Okay. Now, this is very important. Each year when it flips these, it puts everything as the sort order of 1. And I'll get an email every year going, Stacy, why is it when I look at my quick lookup, it's got the buckets out of order? Because this is where they're sorting at. So you probably want to configure these. So I want Q1 first, I want Q2 second, I want X1 third, or maybe you want to, hang on, put all your quarters first, Q3, Q4, and then put your exams into 5 and 6, and then put my F1 last. Put them in whatever order you want to see. Also, is this right here. If you don't want the percent showing, like some people only want the grade, because you know how in percents, especially with our special codes, y'all have to assign a number to them and you're like, ooh, I don't want the parents to see that number. I just want them seeing the grade. You can hide the percents from showing in those other portals. You can hide it in teacher portal even. I don't know that you would want to do that, but you can hide admin, teacher, and parent portal by checking these boxes here. So that is how you would push it on one school. If you want to push these settings in mass to all of the schools, that again can be done at district office on that batch school setup page. So district management, scheduling, batch school setup. And when I go into the run setup steps, notice quick lookup is one of the options. So I just have to, click next through these to get to them. And because I've set it up at one school, I've set it up at the high school, I can now, again, I can edit it from this page if I wanted to. And I could have done that from here. If I started here, I didn't have to go to the high school and do it. I could have done it here in that edit screen and then pushed. I'm going to say, push this now to all of those schools, push quick lookup. And again, that setting is now taken care of for you. Okay. Did I push it? Yes, it just reloads. Maybe, or maybe my internet's gone crazy. All right, any questions on quick lookup? We're almost there, guys. One more setting that is very similar to the quick lookup is the current grade display, and it is one that's actually a school level one that you have to set. Kind of wish it would be set in here as well, but I don't believe it is. In fact, let me just, is current grade display in here? Nope. So I have to go to the school. So current grade display is under school management, academics, and set current grade display right here. Now, this is what controls what they're seeing in the app, in the parent portal, as far as the active term. So it's going to be set to whatever it was last set after you rolled over. So most people were looking at Q4. You want to set this back to Q1, and you'll want to, at the end of each term, come back to this page and update it, because how many of y'all have gotten calls at the end of Q1 from a parent that goes, I'm looking in the parent portal and all my grades still show Q1. I'm not seeing any Q2 changes. This is what controls that. So you want to make a note, like put yourself a Google Calendar thing that says, after your quarters, to go in and update this current grade display page. And notice it also gives you this quick lookup display link to take you right. So I'm going to hit submit right here. Where I know I have to set these, I can go and change and adjust anything right there as well. Thank you, Kendall, because I completely missed that one from Counselor Davis. So thank you for picking that one up. All right, current grade display. Now, last but not least of what I'm going to call the big things that we have to look at is our honor roll. So we have swapped everything over to the next year. Last thing we need to do is remember that in our honor roll calculations, our honor rolls are referenced back to a GPA scale that we set up for those honor rolls that were tagged to a specific school year. So the last thing we need to do is go back to district office to our GPA calculations, and we need to update which school year our honor roll is looking at. So that's going to be under district management, academics, and GPA calculation methods right here. So in our GPA calculation methods, you know, when we walked through this 2 years ago, and I have that video out there that walks you through how to do the honor roll, we've got these 4 honor rolls set up because we like to look at everything in their quarters. In the guts of the honor roll is where we point it where to look at for grades. So this says, hey, only look at Q1 grades for the year 2023. We're no longer in the year 2023. We are now in the year 2024. So you need to go into each one of your honor roll GPA formulas and you need to update that to 2024. Remember that this always looks at the first year of that year range. So we're in the 24-25 school year. So we need to have 2024 on all 4 of these. The good thing is we don't have to update anything in the actual honor roll set up at the school level because we're controlling everything through our GPA formulas, which makes it a little bit easier for us. And last one, 2024. Now, that is it as far as all of the basics that we all do together. Now, some other things to keep in mind. If you have built any object reports that uses specific date ranges in the DAT tags, I know some attendance reports people have built do that, you need to go update those to the new dates of the school year. Something else that I want to make sure that people update, remember that in district management, under district setup on our school info, if you've had any changes in your front office staff that are coded in your schools, like do you have a new principal? Do you have a new registrar? Do you have a new counselor? I'm forgetting who else is on here. Make sure that you come to these edit school pages and that you edit their information because there are DAT tags that pull these to reports. Like I know principal's a big one that's pulled to report cards and such. So if you have new principals, assistant principals, secretaries, and registrars, please come in and update their names here so that if you're pulling them to a report, it pulls who is now working there, not who was working there. You don't want to send home report cards with the old principal's name who's no longer with the system. And guys, that was a lot. And I actually ran 15 minutes over, but y'all stayed in here with me. So anybody have any questions you want to throw in chat? If there's anything that you want to ask, I will stop the recording here in just a minute so that we can have our conversation and let you unmute. But is there anything that anybody wants me to have in the recording as a last minute? Do you have to set up FTE count at district office too? No, Kara, that's a complete school level setting. All right, let me stop the recording.